And the problem is, this time of the year, the only titles that really were available are those cheesy Italian titles, and who wants an Italian title? I really don't want them. There were a couple of Spanish titles. I could have been king of Bulgaria, I tell you, but you know, I didn't feel good with that. Who wants to have to live in Sofia anyway? So we're looking around for a title, and I'm pretty much giving up hope that anything is going to happen this year. And then the phone rings, and it's Michael, and he says, "Pep, I got some good news for you. I've been poking around here, and we have located somebody who just might want to do business with you, you know, over this title." And I said, "Well, you know, money's no object. This is Bubbles wants to buy this for me, but who would it be?" And he said, "Well, it's a Scottish title. It's an old Scottish title. It comes with a castle and extensive land holdings. Of course, they're bankrupt and they need to sell, so we can work a deal. In fact, it's the Laird of Dundeel. The Laird of Dundeel, and he wants to talk about it. And basically, Pep, he's up against it. He has an offer from some Middle Easterners, but he doesn't really want to sell his title to an Arab." And then I told him that I had located a few wealthy Americans, and I said, you have. There are few women in the United States who qualify for wealthy like Bubbles McAdoo, but you know, Bubbles isn't all about money. Bubbles is a fabulous person. He says, "I know that, Pep, I know that very well. I remember the wonderful times we passed together when we were out in San Diego for the Trophy Wives Ball." She says, "Well, anyway, the Laird of Dundeel would like to meet with you people as soon as possible. So Bubbles and I are going to be flying out tomorrow morning to London, and then we'll be driving up to Scotland." And you know, he was very impressed that the McAdoos would be the people purchasing his title because at least, he said, at least it keeps it in Scottish hands. Little did he know, well, Bubbles' family goes back to Scotland, but they're not exactly the same kind of cut of cloth as, you know, the Dundeels are. The truth is, we had done a lineage check, and it found out that Bubbles' ancestor had been a butcher's boy who had broken his apprenticeship in Glasgow, got on a packet steamer, and showed up in the United States just in time to enlist as a surgeon in the Civil War. And from there, he went on to amass a tremendous fortune in railroads. The McAdoo fortune really owes its tremendous success to the fact that they incorporated paid toilets on the trains, which coincided with a dysentery epidemic, and the rest is history. Well, anyway, I'm looking forward to meeting the fella, taking a look at the castle, and very, very possibly within the next couple of weeks, the deal will be done with the Dundeels, and you will no longer be talking to merely Preston Pepper. You're going to be talking to the Laird of Dundeel, and I will hope when this happens, Richard, that people will, you know, grant me the respect that somebody who has such a prestigious title deserves. I think it's time that the world took notice of me for the things I've done and the things that I intend to do. Well, that said, I had a wonderful time, and I want to tell you something else we've been working on. Last week, I told you what we had been up to. You know, Rory Cripps, one of my fellows on the team that I've been putting together, he basically said to me when we were talking about stuff, we were talking about hedges against inflation, and God knows we have got to find a way to protect our money because inflation is just simply eating up its value. Even the McAdoos are feeling the pinch, and when Bubbles McAdoo has to cut back, you know there's a lot of suffering out there, which is to be expected with a liberal administration like the one we currently have in the White House. They don't have a clue about what to do about resuscitating this economy. It's like a zombie. I tried to call him last week. I try to call him every week. I say, it's Preston Pepper. I want to speak to President Obama. And I never get through. They keep saying, well, he's out, he's weeding the garden, whatever. But they do not want to talk about my plan for improving America. I've got quite a few plans up my sleeve. I'm wearing this shirt today because I didn't know if we were going to have air conditioning. Unfortunately, this station, the building, has been bought out by some staunch liberals, and they don't like Richard Quinn at all. There's no doubt about it. They don't like Richard, and they are trying to shut us down. But we will not be shut down because we are small R Republicans, mister. We are the kind of people who made America great. Yeah, I got Bubbles McAdoo in my corner, but I don't count on that lady's money. What I count on is her moral support, which keeps me coming back every Tuesday evening on Pep Talk to tell it like it is, and it's bad. I also got a call today from Mitt Romney's camp. They're asking me to back down. You know what happened? I backed Newt in the primary, and I'm paying for it still, and now they want me to step up to the plate and say everything's forgiven and that I am going to back Mitt. I'm not sure I am. I, of course, want to see Obama out there, but I was hoping we could get a more conservative candidate than Mitt Romney, a libertarian, somebody who espouses the views that made this country a great country. I don't see it coming from Mitt. And neither does John McCain. That's the truth. Well, anyway, we were talking about hedges against inflation and what came out of that conversation. And, you know, I've got a really fine little team that I have assembled for my ascent to the mayoralty of Upper Nyack. When I am mayor of Upper Nyack, there is at least going to be one small corner of this country where libertarians know that they're appreciated. And we were talking about this, and we were talking about gold and baseball cards and race horses and all kinds of things. And we decided that the best way to hedge against inflation was to buy some politicians. And then Rory said, you know, Pep, a guy like you, I mean, I couldn't do it. And I said, Rory, don't sell yourself short. He said, I'm not selling myself short, Pep, but I don't have the kind of financial resources, but damn it, I would like to buy some politicians. And I said, you know, we got to do something so the average American, the small American, can also buy politicians. Because let's be honest, and I'm sorry, liberals, it's not about casting a vote. It's about putting the money on the table. That's what America's about. That's how you make a deal. How do I know? I'm a deal maker. I am the son of a deal maker. My father, Red Pepper, was one of the most sought-after deal makers there was in the country when it came to selling broken-down farm equipment to the third world. There was nobody better than Red. He made a lot of money. He left my mother, probably because she was a liberal. We touched on that last week. It's a sad story. By the way, Ira Glass, the man who suffered a relapse into liberalism, is doing much better and has taken to eating solid food. Thanks, Doc Rubin, for that cure you came up with. The castor oil seems to work every time on liberals. Well, anyway, we decided we were going to sell influence to the common man. The problem was how to do it. I admit, Preston Pepper is a tree shaker. I am not a jelly maker, but I have some of the best jelly makers on the block working for me. And one of them is Stephen out in St. Louis, the truck driving son of America. He did such a marvelous job when we thought that the country was going to lapse into a meat economy that I called him up immediately and caught him on his paper route. Stephen went right to work and didn't miss a single delivery. I wish you could see the plan he drew up that day. But all I will say is, according to his plan, all incoming freshman reps and senators will now submit to an initial public offering so that market forces can establish a base value on their influence. I promise you next week I'll have more information, and that groups of citizens, elk clubs, holy name societies, churches, synagogues will be able to group their shares in organizations similar to mutual funds. Daily reports will be indexed on the PEP, Influence and Money Peddling Index, known as PIMP. So if you people want to get in to the influence peddling business, you will now be able to do this by buying shares on PIMP. It's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity, and I think you're going to really like that. All the talk today seemed to be in the financial pages turned to Spain. Spain's got big problems. Spain and the rest of the Eurozone are coming apart like a cheap shirt. It's a terrible thing to see. It really is a terrible thing to see. Oh my God, I had people sitting there and they've left. They were probably liberals. They probably couldn't take it, or else they were some people from one of the homeless shelters waiting for the doors to open for the evening shift. Anyway, I've been talking about a lot of these things, and I'll tell you, it was a wild, wild weekend. And getting back to Spain, I was talking to my friend Roberto from the BBVA Bank, and Roberto said to me, we have a plan to save Spain. And I said, you better. And I said, how does it work? And Roberto says to me, Pep, it works like this. What we're going to do is we're going to sell the whole country. We're going to sell the whole country to the Germans. And I said, well, that's good. The Germans have money. And it's true, Germany is the economic engine of the Eurozone. So the Spanish idea is they're going to sell Spain to the Germans. What the Germans don't know is that the Spanish really don't have much to offer. In other words, basically everything has been spent. And what they're hoping is that after the Germans buy Spain for its beachfront property, they're going to discover how rundown everything is and want to sell it back so that Spain will clear its debts and make a profit. It sounded a little hokey to me, but in desperate times, people are driven to desperate measures. Meanwhile, what else is going on? I'm going to tell you something. I spent a lot of time with my father-in-law this weekend, and, I got there, and it's always nice to see Ebenezer McAdoo, the richest man in the world, and he said, Pep, it's really nice to see you. I'm really touched. He said, when I heard from Bubbles this morning that she had been elected Mother of the Year, or was going to be elected Mother of the Year, I said, I wonder how they worked it. And I said, well, basically Karl Rove paid him off. We bought the title for your daughter. We wanted to make her happy. We didn't want to get into a protracted campaign and all kinds of mudslinging because Bubbles was involved. And he said, Pep, how much did you pay? I said, well, Mr. McAdoo, we paid quite a considerable amount of money. And he said, how much? And I told him how much. I'm not gonna make the sum public. And he said, Ma, you got that title cheap. And I said, I got the title cheap. And he said, considering what a miserable mother my daughter was, I think you got it for her pretty cheap. He said, Pep, she's a wonderful girl. She's a wonderful girl, but as a mother, not much. None of my children have been very good as parents, and at least she's better than my son. And, of course, he was referring to Bobby, his son. He said, Bobby, he's been a big disappointment to me. I bought him that law degree from Harvard. And I said, well, you paid for his education. That's commendable. He said, no, I didn't pay for his education. I bought him a law degree. And I said, well, anyway, you did what you had to do. He says, yeah, I did what I had to do, and now what's he done for the whole of his life? He's been a shuffleboard coach, and he's a liberal. At least the girls are conservative. But, I don't think much of them. But then I see you, Pep, and you're like the son I always wish I'd had. You're brimming with ambition. You are the epitome of what you called on your show last week, the United States of Ambition. And I really like you, Pep. I love you like a son. You're out there. You're going to be mayor of that little town, and I know it's just a stepping stone to bigger and better things. And my daughter has finally hitched her horse to the right wagon, and I was thinking, my God, I've made it all. Pep, you've hit the big time. If Ebenezer McAdoo has taken such a shine to you, you are there. You are really there. And, I said, if there's anything you can do, I can do for you, Mr. McAdoo. He says, well, Pep, there is one thing you could do for me. And I said, what is that, sir? What is that? He said, one thing is, I want you to be a father to those two girls of my daughters, because I'll tell you, their dad wasn't much. I tried to set him up with a lawnmower distributorship. I reckon that he could handle that, and he almost choked himself to death with the starter cord. And I said, yeah, I knew that one. But you don't want that from me. He said, no, I don't want that from you. What I really want from you is a promise. I said, promise of what, sir? Anything that I can deliver. He says, I know you're pretty close with Andy down at Fairchild's funeral parlor out on, Broadway in Nyack. And, Pep, I'm not getting any younger. And I said, none of us are, sir. You're looking pretty. He said, cut the crap, Pep. I like you too much for you to flatter me. I've always had a dream. I said, well, he said, no, I've always had a dream, and when I pass on, I want a Viking funeral. I said, wow, last week I made a lot of promises to the clientele at Fairchild's, and I don't know if it can be done. He said, Pep, I want a Viking funeral. I said, my God, a Viking funeral. Well, I got on the phone to Andy at Fairchild's. By the way, it's really the only way to go. That's the new motto we're coming up with. Fairchild's, the only way to go. Nobody gets buried alive by burial costs. And I explained the problem to Andy. I said, look, Mr. McAdoo, you know who he is? Mr. McAdoo. Mr. Mac. I said, Andy, look at it this way. He wants a Viking funeral. And Andy said, I don't know if we can do it. I mean, the river, we would need permits. I said, Andy, he owns the river. He said, well, maybe we could do something. I'll get back to you, Pep. I'll get back to you. And I hung up, and Andy's supposed to get back to me late tonight. I think it's going to happen. Nobody has ever said no to the McAdoos. And in the meantime, I called my dad up, and, I just wanted to tell him where I was, because I'll tell you the truth, my dad can really be a pain in the butt with all the name dropping he does. My dad has known everybody, but he's never met Ebenezer McAdoo, and I'm thinking, I'm going to call up my dad, and I'm going to win at least one hand of name drop poker. That's the game we call it, name drop poker, My dad is incredible at name drop poker. He says all his real friends' names begin with an R. If they're not a Rothschild, well, then they're a Rockefeller or they're something else. But the truth is, they're big shots. They're big shots. And, I call up my dad, and I says to him, Pop, I'm here at Sans Souci, and I'm hanging out. Oh, my God, the phone's ringing. It's Bubbles. Just a second. Hey, Bubbles, what's up? No, I don't. I really don't, baby. I'm just doing my thing and kind of falling apart all over the place trying to describe our wonderful weekend with your father. I don't know what can happen. We may have a technical difficulty. It rarely happens, but as I explained, Bubs, liberals have bought the building and they will stop at nothing to... Yes, it is. By the way, hun, did you hear we got it for you? Carl called you our Mother of the Year. Yes, you're Mother of the Year, honey. You finally won something. Just leave it to old Pep. Okay. Well, I love you dearly, and I want to finish my story about how my father was affected by the fact that I'd spent the weekend with your dad. So I'll speak to you soon. What a wonderful woman. What a wonderful woman. She's $2 billion worth of love. That's a lot of woman. Now, anyway, so I tell my dad I spent the time out at the McAdoo place. I said, that's something, Pop. And you know what my father said to me? I'm not impressed, son. I am not impressed. What is a legacy? I said, I don't know. And what is a legacy? He says, it's nothing but a lot of money with mold on it. And he hung up the phone. I mean, come on. I mean, you know, this is the kind of stuff I'm taking all the time, but I don't care. I am on top of the world these days. I'm like this with Ebenezer McAdoo, and I got the greatest team on the planet. I got the greatest team on the planet. You know why my team is so much better than the other Republicans out there? I'm going to tell you why. Most of them are reformed Democrats, except for Rory, of course, who's a small R Republican from the get-go. I have taken these boys under my wing, and I have reconverted them, and as they say, there's nothing more Catholic than a converted Catholic. There's nothing more righteously Republican than a converted Republican, and that's what I got on my team. So I don't care. I was at the ballpark this weekend. I was running around. I was having a good time. I'm trying to arrange a Viking funeral. I know I'm all over and scattered because I forgot to take my meds, but I don't care. This is Pep Talk. I get a call from Bubbles that the show's completely frozen. I hope that it's an isolated problem. I don't care. I'll see you next week, and we're going to have some fun. And you may have to call me the Laird, okay? Good night. I love you. God bless you, but remember who you'll be speaking to. I'm nobility now. Not one of the better ones, but sometimes it doesn't work.
Lights off. You're not frozen. We're watching you inside.
I don't know. At Katie's house, it was frozen.
Well, you can't listen to everybody.
Oh, I'm listening to Katie. I'm not listening to everybody.
Well, you can't. You listen to us. If there was a problem, I'd be out here telling you there's a problem.
All right, don't worry about it.
Don't worry.
That wasn't one of the best ones. What happened?
Yeah.
Where's the angry human?